Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know who I am, my name is Allison. I am a women's femininity coach. I'm on Instagram at A Devotional Heart. And speaking of Instagram, I met my next guest by falling in love with her content. She talks about homemaking, motherhood. Even though I'm not a mom, I still enjoy her reels and her posts. She has such a beautiful light, beautiful love for God inside of her heart that just shines through with her content. So I knew I needed to ask her to be on my show. And here she is. Jillian, welcome to the Devotional Heart Show.
Thank you for having me, Allison.
So, I want to hear about your conversion. And then after that, I really want to talk about just being a woman in the Orthodox Church. I have a lot of friends that are inquiring about Orthodoxy, and they've been asking me to have more guests on who can speak about just being a wife and mother, being an Orthodox Christian, and what that's like, and just any tips that you can give a new convert, or just anything related to the Theotokos, the saints. There's so many things I want to get into today. So first, let's just talk about your baptism, but let's start at the beginning and how you were raised and then how you found the Orthodox Church.
So it's kind of a long story, actually.
That's okay. We've got time. Give us all the details.
I was actually born Roman Catholic. I was baptized Roman Catholic. I went through First Holy Communion, and then my mom took us out of the Catholic Church, and I was non-denominational for a while. Then I was Methodist for a long time. I was Methodist whenever I met my husband, but there was actually a chunk of time in college where I was in a fight with God, and so I didn't even go to church. And then met my husband, and he helped me bring me back to God. And so we went to a Methodist church for 5 years. We were married in the Methodist church, and then COVID happened. And in the midst of COVID, we went through a bit of a church crisis. And so I ended up going to a non-denominational church. This was back whenever we lived in Pittsburgh. We're in South Carolina now. But I started going to a non-denominational church, and my husband wasn't going with me. And it's funny because he will tell everyone that I have this weird, like, when I really, really am just struggling with something or I need scripture, he'll tell people, like, I can take a Bible, drop it on its spine, and whatever it opens to is what I needed to read. And that's just been something that I've been able to do for a long time. And so he has never really had experiences like that. Well, he ended up having a really close experience with God at work, and it was so random. He was sitting at work, and something told him to look into Orthodoxy. And he had no idea why, because he had been Methodist his entire life. And he was like, I don't even know what this is. And so he came home and he told me about it. And I was like, no. I thought it was Catholicism. I wanted nothing to do with it. I was like, I was Catholic before. I have no interest in this. Absolutely not. No. And he started looking more into it, and he absolutely fell in love with Orthodoxy. He actually used to be a Freemason, and you can't be a Freemason whenever you're Orthodox. But everything he was looking for in Freemasonry, he found in Orthodoxy. Had he known about Orthodoxy years before, he never would have been a Freemason. And so he started going to a little Orthodox church in our old community. And there was maybe 20 people in attendance usually. It was very small. There wasn't a lot of kids. There was definitely no toddlers, and we have a toddler, a very rambunctious toddler who likes to run everywhere. And I was going to a very large non-denominational church that had childcare for Sundays, and I was in the praise team and stuff. And so he starts going. This was at the very, very beginning of 2020. Was it 2020? No, it would have been the beginning of what year is this? 2020, beginning of 2021. That's whenever he started going.
Okay.
And so it was right at the beginning of Lent whenever he started going. And he asked me to come with him to Pascha service last year. And he explained this to me, that it went from like 11 to 4 in the morning. And I said, are you nuts? I don't want to go to that. He said, will you please come with me? So I said, fine, I'll go. But at the same time, that weekend, I had to sing at praise team with my other church, which has 3 services and 2 rehearsals. So I had a rehearsal on Saturday, a service Saturday, Pascha Saturday night, rehearsal Sunday morning, and 2 more services Sunday.
Oh my gosh.
I made
and
it.
at that time you had 2 kids at that time too, right?
Just one.
Oh, just one.
I wasn't pregnant yet.
Okay.
Just one. And my sister-in-law came and stayed with her for that night. So it was just my husband and I at Pascha. I made it about an hour to whenever we were walking outside the church and ringing the bells, and I was half asleep. And I looked at my husband and I said, I'm sleeping in the truck. I don't understand what's happening. I don't get this. So I went and I slept in the truck. And then he came out at like 4 a.m. after drinking mead with the priest. And I was like, you stayed and socialized. I should have been in bed. So upset with him for like selfish reasons, but also like I was exhausted. And I was done. I was like, I'm not doing this. So I apologize if you hear my dog in the background.
Oh no.
So he kept going to the Orthodox church and loved it. And I supported him. I just wasn't ready to look more into it. I loved my church that I was going to. And then the decision came for him to become a catechumen. And catechumen is basically the process of becoming Orthodox. And so he asked me to come with him for him to become catechumen. And so I went with him. And I started attending a little bit more, but what actually helped me was the adult education classes. So the priest of that church did adult education classes every week, and I would go with my husband to them. We made it like that was our weekly date night. We would have someone come watch our daughter. Him and I would go to the education classes, and then we'd go out to dinner afterwards. And that was what helped me because I had no idea what was happening. The liturgies did not make sense to me. Mm-hmm. So going to the education classes, the priest started to explain everything and things started to make sense. One of the things that struck me first was conversation about saints and interpretations of the Bible, and how in a lot of Protestant churches, like the non-denominational church that I went to, the pastor will go up for the sermon and the message and read a piece of scripture, but then talk about their life and a story of how it reflects with them in the scripture and how they interpreted that piece of scripture and how they think we should interpret that piece of scripture. Mm-hmm. And I always loved it. Like I would remember leaving church services and looking at my husband and be like, oh, that was such a good message. Oh, I really needed to hear that message this week. Well, talking in adult education about the saints and learning like they were the closest people to who wrote the Bibles, to the disciples, to Jesus. And so if there's anyone that we should trust their interpretations of what scripture is saying, it should be the saints. Mm-hmm. And that really clicked with me. I was like, that makes sense. I understand that. And now I'm starting to understand saints a little bit more. And so kind of going back to what my husband said, where I could like open the Bible and just whatever was there was what I needed to read. Our priest at the time told me to look into an app called CATENA. And I think that's how it's pronounced. That's how I always say it. CATENA. It's CATENA. It's a Bible app. It's an Orthodox Bible app and it's free, but all of scripture, if you tap on a piece of scripture, it'll pull up what the saints say, what the saints' interpretations of it are. And so when I would have those moments of, I really need scripture, and I would open up the Bible, and for a little while, it was Galatians. God was like, Jill, you need Galatians in your life right now. And I was reading it, and then I was reading what the saints were saying, and it helped me understand the book of Galatians so much better. And it put so much more of what was happening in our life at the time with potentially moving to South Carolina and so many changes in the family. It helped put it into more perspective with me. Mm-hmm. And so it was the adult education classes that started to help. And I started to feel this wedge because it was hard. I was going to a different church with my daughter, and my husband was going to a different church on Sundays. So we weren't going to church together. And that definitely causes a wedge in marriages too. And so further in 2021 comes around, and between the months of July and October, we are figuring out if we're moving to South Carolina. And in October, we learned that we were moving. And so I told my husband, I promised that after we would move, I would leave the non-denominational church and start attending an Orthodox church with him. So we came down here and we found our church that we go to now called Holy Ascension. It's in Charleston. And it's a really big mission church. It's full of converts. It's literally a convert church. And we just had 12, I think, of us. I think there was 12 of us who were chrismated into Orthodoxy on Holy Saturday. And so talking about it with the priest, I was pregnant at this time. We sat down and met with him and decided that us as a family would be chrismated. So my husband, myself, and our daughter were chrismated, and our son was baptized all on the same day on Holy Saturday a few weeks ago. And the agreement was that I would attend more catechumen classes after, because I didn't get a full year yet in. Most priests will tell you that whenever you're converting, they want you to do a full calendar year so you can experience everything in the Orthodox Church before you are fully chrismated. My husband did. I hadn't, but we wanted the family to be chrismated together. And I am devout, like I'm very devoted to the Orthodox faith now. And so I just need to learn more about it. So I'm going to be attending catechumen classes, even though I'm already chrismated. And so that's kind of where that went. But the coming to the church down here is what helped me solidify wanting to join the Orthodox faith. Because the church back home, like I said, there wasn't a lot of kids. There wasn't a lot of people. This one, there's a ton of people. There's probably around 100 or so people in attendance every Sunday. We have a big social gathering with coffee and food afterwards every Sunday. I've become close friends with quite a few of the members of the church. The godparents for our children are fantastic. I ended up connecting with a woman who I love dearly. She was my sponsor and my godmother now, and they have just helped us so much in this transition into the faith. And then my husband tends to find all of the Orthodox people who I need to follow on Instagram and Facebook and sends them my way, so they help me.
Perfect.
But my conversion started with kicking and screaming and has ended with me absolutely loving it and wanting to learn more. So to summarize it all.
Well, at least, I mean, you were a Christian already. So, compared to me, 2 years ago, I didn't know anything about Christianity and the Bible and everything like that. So I feel like you just transferred, and I wanted to ask you, how did your family accept your chrismation, or friends? And like, did the people from the old church ask you, why are you doing this? Or how did that go?
So more people just kind of asked what Orthodoxy is.
Mm-hmm.
They really didn't understand what it was. And so we just answered their questions. Everyone supported it. No one was against what we were doing. They asked a lot of questions, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I couldn't give them really. I would be like, go ask my husband, or like send them, or I'd text him and be like, I need an answer to this. I can't tell you how many times I have texted my husband saying, what does Orthodoxy mean again? Like, when did it happen? When was the separation? What was that called between Orthodoxy and the Catholic Church? And he has to like re-explain it to me every time. But
You'll get it.
One day. They were all completely on board with it. They're totally fine with it. It was hard because we live in South Carolina now, so our family couldn't be here for the chrismation. But our church live streams services, so they were able to at least watch it on YouTube, which was good.
Oh, that's awesome. And who is your patron saint?
Mine is Mary of Bethany. So whenever we were going over this, and this is one of the other reasons that I started to really fall in love with Orthodoxy, I actually really feel connected to my saint. And that's what you're supposed to do too. You're supposed to find a saint that you feel you connect with. And in searching for saints, I chose Mary of Bethany. Her story, if you know her story, so Jesus came in and she washed his feet, was taking care of him, and she was the homemaker in that story. And that's kind of what I resonated in with that, because in transitioning to Orthodoxy as well, I also transitioned into fully embracing my role as homemaker. That is a whole other story of how I went kicking and screaming into becoming a homemaker. I thought I was going to be a career woman for my entire life. And then God was like, no, I have other plans for you. This is my plan for you, and you're going to like it. And I do. I absolutely love it now and have fully embraced it. And now I'm trying to help other women go through that change as well, and and learn to love that, because it's a difficult transition when that's not what you're planning for. And so I just connected with Mary of Bethany and her story. So she is my patron saint.
So talk a little bit more about that, because this is a big topic for me too, with my Instagram and also my Telegram group, which I think you're in. I don't know if
I am.
I do see you in
quiet,
there. That's
but
right.
I am in there.
Okay. That's right. I do see you in there. Okay. It's hard to keep track because I have over 100 ladies in there. But so this is one of the topics, that we talk about, is how feminism told us we needed to be career women to have any kind of purpose in our lives. And then we figure out, I don't have children, but those of you who do, it's like, that is what you want to do. That is your fulfillment, is raising children and staying home with them, and even homeschooling. I don't know if that's something that you talk about as well. And so yeah, talk a little bit about that, and we have to deprogram out of feminism. And so what is that like, and what can you share about that?
It's a brutal fight, is what it is. You're trying to rechange and rewire your brain from what society says women should be doing.
Yeah.
Society deems that women should be in a career field, not that they can be. There's a very big difference in that. And so with me, I have a bachelor's degree in criminology. I was a victims advocate. I worked with victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I did not
loved
know
it.
that.
Yeah, I was like a whole lifetime ago, but yes, that was what I did. I did that for 2 years, and I thought that was what I was going to do. I actually had plans of opening up my own shelter, all these things. And I thought that was what I was going to do. And in 2017, I was on my way to work, and I was in a really, really bad car accident. I was smashed between two SUVs, and it caused a grade 3 concussion and 2 brain bruises. And so I ended up being in physical therapy and vestibular therapy for a year and a half. So I had to leave my job because I couldn't work and I couldn't drive. So that's
poor thing. That must have been really hard. I cannot even imagine that, Jillian. Oh.
It was. But I'm okay now.
Yeah, you seem great. Did they prescribe hyperbaric oxygen therapy by any chance?
Nope, it was just a lot of physical therapy. Honestly, the exercise I can remember doing the most was sitting in front of blinds with a popsicle stick, moving my eyes back and forth, because I had to retrain my eyes to be able to move without causing headaches. Yeah, it was annoying. I sat there for hours just staring at cracked blinds with a popsicle stick because of this. Yeah, so
that is brutal.
It was okay though. It healed me. I'm fine. I'm driving now. But that was what pulled me from the work field. And I tried getting back in. I actually took a manager job at a retail store that I had previously worked for. I worked at a bank for a little bit. And I was like, I'm determined, like, I'm going to get back into the career field. And then it wasn't working. And everything hurt. It still hurt to drive for so long. So my husband and I sat down, and we didn't have kids yet, and decided that we could financially make it work for me to be home. And at the time I was working for an MLM company, and was like, okay, I'm going to pursue this and try and make this a career. So I came home, and it was that was middle of 2018, whenever we decided not to anymore. And we got pregnant on January 1st, 2019. So it wasn't long. It was like 6 months. I think I was home before we got pregnant. And so I was trying to make this business work. It wasn't working, but I was also trying to figure out how to become a mom. and all these things. I came from a very toxic childhood, so I wanted to be a mom really bad, but I wanted to be a career mom and I wanted a different life for my children and all this stuff. And my daughter was born, and I learned real quick that things were going to continue not going as I had planned. And so she was born October 1st of 2019. And in January of 2020, we had decided that we wanted to open a store because I was still determined to have a full-time career. And I was like, she can come to work with me. She'll come work at the store with me. Like, I'm not going to be home. This is going to be great. So we found a building. We started doing everything to open this store. We get into March, and our grand opening day was the day the world shut down for COVID. Mm-hmm. So we couldn't actually open the store until April. And even then it was still like slow going. I mean, we were in a very, very small town, so we weren't as strict as most places, but it was still hard. People weren't going out. They weren't shopping in person. Yeah. And I had my daughter with me, but at the same time, I was also going through really, really dark postpartum depression. Mm-hmm. I had gained 50 pounds in 4 months of being postpartum while I was exclusively breastfeeding. It didn't make sense. I was eating healthy. I ended up developing binge eating disorder. Like, there was just so much that happened in a short time span. And it was the hardest year of my life. And so we closed down the store at the end of 2020. I had went through a ton of therapy. I started working with a hormone specialist to try and refix my hormones and start losing weight. And I just was like, okay, if I'm going to be home, I have to figure out how to make this work. And so then we go into 2021 and the conversation starts about potentially moving to South Carolina. And I'm like, okay, well, if we're moving, I don't have a support system anymore. I'm not going to open up another store. I'm going to run my online business. I'm going to do that and stuff, but I don't have a support system anymore. And I am all for moving. I wanted to move to the South. It was my dream to come back down to the South. I lived in North Carolina for 6 years. My husband had never moved before in his life. His family had never moved. So this was a really, really big transition for him. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I have to be the emotional support for my husband. I have to help him through this, and help just kind of be an emotional rock for my family through this, because our toddler doesn't understand what's happening. I'm pregnant. My husband's never done this. And he's taking on a whole, like, he had to develop, he got hired as, I apologize. I thought I had my notifications off on my laptop and I didn't think I did. So he was put into a position. He's a continuous improvement engineer, and basically they created that job for him at the plant down here. So he's the only one in the whole plant who does this. He kind of runs the department, and he had to create this job. So there's a lot of job pressure in that as well. Mm-hmm. And so we moved into a 2-bedroom apartment when we came down, and it didn't really feel like home, but I was like, I don't have a support system. I need to make this work for my daughter. I need her to be comfortable. I need my husband to be comfortable. We bought a house. I was like, okay, if we're going to be happy, the root of the happiness is the home. So I'm going to, like, my husband is, I started leaning into our love languages. His are acts of service and quality time. Mine are physical touch and words of affirmation. And when I start purposely trying to speak his love language, he started speaking mine more. So I'm sorry, can you hear those notifications?
No, I can't hear.
Okay, good. So I was like, okay, we're going to keep up with the house. I have a very strict routine that I keep up with to make sure the house is kept up with. I got my daughter involved with it, so now she understands the routine. And I mean, she's a toddler, but she gets up, she makes her bed, she picks out her clothes, she puts her clothes in the laundry basket, she brushes her teeth. She has her routine. She helps clean up the dishes. So when he comes home, the house is ready and clean whenever he gets home, so he can relieve stress because he's just been at work all day. But then that also means he can spend quality time with the family because we're not cleaning, which means when he can spend quality time, I'm getting words of affirmation. Like, we're getting what we need. And I was like, okay, I have to, if I want B, C, and D to happen, I have to do A. And so just being in that rhythm and doing that, it gave me that sense of purpose, because our family is happier, our family is healthier since taking on that role. And I have fallen in love with it. I I've loved it so much, especially since having my son, that I now nanny 2 extra kids. So I have 4 children every single day. 2 are not mine, and one of them is 2 months old. So like, I have fallen in love with this role so much that I feel this purpose.
Mhm.
And I just want to help other moms do that. So like you talked about homeschooling. I do plan on homeschooling. We're going to do a hybrid school with our daughter. It's a cottage school that teaches a classical curriculum. So she'll go 1 day a week and then I homeschool the other 4. But in the meantime, I'm creating toddler homeschooling curriculums to share with other moms. So converting into Orthodoxy is what helped me embrace that role, because learning about the role of a woman in Orthodoxy,
Mm-hmm.
I began to respect is the wrong term, because I have always respected stay-at-home
Mm-hmm.
moms. To be honest, that's why I didn't want to do it, because I knew stay-at-home moms had the hardest job, and I was like, I can't do that. And I ended up falling in love with it, and just as I fell in love with Orthodoxy, and it kind of just all fit together. It was really just God just working on our house.
Beautiful. So beautiful. Yeah, I love how children are part of the liturgy as well. And the mothers take turns holding each other's babies, and the kids, it's just this big family, as opposed to probably how you grew up in church. Did the kids go to Sunday school and then the adults worship together? And
it definitely took Gemma some time to transition. So she was used to childcare, so she was not used to sitting in a liturgy. But now she loves it. She comes in and she stands there, she sings with us. It's taken her some time to transition, but I love it too. Like, all the kids just run around and they sing and they love watching what's happening.
Yeah. And like you were saying earlier about the rhythm and the routine of your daily life, your morning and your afternoon. Well, we have this too with not only our liturgy every week, but the feasts of the year and the cycles and nativity and Pascha, and creating these memories. And I just think it would be so fun to raise a child in the Orthodox Church. There's so many fun activities, and seems like there's new coloring books and things coming out about the saints all the time, and games that you can play. And it's really cute.
I ordered a few Orthodox books for like St. Patrick's Day, to learn about St. Patrick, but she loves the routines. Her patron saint is St. Theodora, because the story, I don't know if you know the story of St. Theodora,
I
but
don't.
I'm praying I don't butcher this. But I believe it was her husband was against icons. And so he had basically banished all the icons. And when he passed away, she brought all the icons back. And she was in love with icons. And that's how our daughter is. Venerating the icons at the end of liturgy is her favorite thing to do in the world. She wants icons in her bedroom. She loves icons. And so that's why we gave her the patron Saint Theodora, but she loves the routine. She wakes up, our prayer corner is like in a little nook in our hallway. And so she'll come out and she'll do prayers with us. She venerates the icons. She keeps one every night. She likes to pick one that she wants to take to sleep with her. There's been a few nights where it's the icon of Jesus, and it's super sweet. But our priest actually gave her it's like a trifold, but it's wooden, of 3 different icons on it that she just keeps right on her dresser in her room. And she absolutely loves it.
Oh my gosh. How old is she? 3?
She's 2.
What? Oh my God.
Yeah. She's 2.5, but yeah, it's her favorite thing.
Oh my gosh.
And I love that, because she never would have done that in a non-denominational.
Right. And then your new baby, do you have a patron saint for him?
Yes. Yeah, he is Saint Seraphim. So as his name is Henry, but his saint is Saint Seraphim. And Seraphim's story is he was very quiet. He kind of stayed by himself. He lived in the woods for a long time, but he loved Mother Mary. He loved Theotokos. And there were quite a few instances in his life where he would just pray to her, and she literally saved his life. Like, he was mugged one time where he was just beaten up and was almost beaten to death, and prayed, and ended up, he lived. Like, he went to I believe it was the monastery that he ended up walking to. And they were able to bring him back and he saved his life. And his saint, his icon picture is him holding an icon of Theotokos. And so just throughout my pregnancy with Henry, I pictured him as just calm, kind of just quiet, a mama's boy, like just laid back. And that's exactly how he is. He is the easiest baby in the world. He sleeps from 9 to 4 every single night. And I'm kind of afraid to have more children because I don't think I'm going to get that lucky again. But he's very quiet, very laid back. But it's so funny because I'll walk in the room and I'll start talking and his face just lights up and he's like, Mom's here. And like my daughter, I mean, I nursed both of them, but my daughter never did that. I mean, she was happy because Mom was here and she would get fed, but like she didn't do that. She's very much a daddy's girl. Daddy is her best friend in the whole world.
Cute.
And he is my little man. He's my boy. I look at him and his face just like that. He's very quiet. I just picture him kind of like as he gets older, just being very old fashioned, just wanting to just read a bunch of books all the time and just kind of quiet, laid back. And he fits his patron saint. So that's how we chose
so
his.
Cool. Oh, I love that. So back to feminism and deconstructing ourselves, reprogramming our brains, and aside from career wise, talk a little bit about in marriage, when we're feminists, we either think we have to do everything on our own, have to look out for ourselves, can't depend on anyone, and creates this hardness, like you don't want to let people in because you have to make sure you can take care of yourself. I mean, that's the extreme. I was never like that, but that's kind of what it seems like a lot of women, especially women I'm talking to on Instagram, have this situation where it's really, really hard for them to trust and let go and open up and let their man lead them. If you're a feminist, that's like, no, men don't get to lead us. That seems so oppressive and horrible, right? So do you have anything to share about transitioning from even just making decisions, letting your husband make decisions that maybe in the past you would have had to be the one making those decisions?
Yeah. I think it comes from society completely getting the term submissive incorrect.
They've
misconstrued that whole term.
Let's talk about this. This is so good.
They have completely misconstrued this whole term. And so I can actually remember whenever my husband and I were getting married and we were still Methodist, we were going through marriage classes, and it was the verse in the Bible where it talks about wives need to be submissive to their husbands. Mm-hmm. And I literally called my pastor and I was like, no, I don't like this. Why does this say this? Like, we are equal partners. I should not have to listen to him. What? And he tried explaining it to me. And I still fought it. I was like, this doesn't make it, because I had what society deemed in mind. Like, society views submission as weakness.
Right.
They view submission as giving in and not having a say, and that you are just the quiet little mouse who sits in the corner and can't do anything. That is not true whatsoever. No. If you read that verse in the Bible, yes, wives need to be submissive. But the next half of that verse is that husbands need to literally give up their lives for their wives. Like, they have to die for us. They kind of have the harder calling in that part. Yeah. But at the same time, when God created man and woman, that he created Adam to lead and Eve to be the helper. He created us together. And when we work together properly, we then reflect God's image. And so the men are supposed to lead and the women are supposed to be submissive, but we're also the ones who are helping our husbands. And so there's actually a statistic my husband showed me, and this kind of deals with conversions. My husband, I probably have the numbers wrong, but he said when a husband starts converting into a different religion, 85% of the time the family will follow. When a wife converts, it's like 30% of the time the family will follow. And when a child converts, it's like 12% of the time. So the husband, and we see this in society, we see this in broken homes. I mean, I grew up in a broken home without a father figure, and I made a lot of mistakes in my life because of this. I had daddy issues growing up because I didn't have a father in my life. Mm-hmm. We see this so often in society, where when you don't have a strong male presence in a home, children feel lost.
Yeah.
They don't know how to be guided, especially daughters then don't know what healthy relationships are supposed to look like. They don't know how they're supposed to be treated by men. Sons don't know how they're supposed to treat women. They don't know how they're supposed to lead a family and lead a home and take charge. And it's not taking charge in a way of you're the one who's like in control of everything. Because I can guarantee you, my husband would not know what's going on in life if it was not for me, because I'm the one who organizes all of the appointments. Like, I know what's going on.
Right. You have a designated task, but again, it's helping. It's a helping role. It's not a controlling role.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we balance each other out then. And we also don't view it as his money and he's working. It's our money and we are raising our children. I'm the one with our children 99% of the time, but him and I, because I'm with them because he's at work, but when he comes home, it's still a balance. Like, yeah, I'm the one cooking dinner, but he's playing with the kids out back while we're doing that. But if he wants to go off and do something, like, by all means, go have fun. But usually he doesn't. He wants to be home with our kids. But it's a give and take. There's nights where I don't want to cook and he'll cook, or he'll help out with laundry. Like, we have a balance in this, but we have open communication around this. He often will tell me, he's like, you have the harder job. You're the one who's home with so many children every single day. But you learn to kind of help each other out. And so when it comes to being submissive, though, I don't view that as a weakness. I view being submissive to your husband as a strength, because that's true partnership. You're learning to communicate on a whole new level with your partner whenever you do that. And so, like, with my husband, he's never led us wrong. Right. He's never steered us wrong. When you look at Genesis, it was Eve who took the apple first, right? I have made more mistakes. I can be open and honest about that. Like, but when my husband leads us, I can trust that everything's going to be completely okay. Yeah. And he's got it, and he has fully thought this out and figured this out. And so I trust that God is telling him to lead us. And it has worked out in every way, orthodoxy being one of the biggest ways. So I guess that's my stance on it.
Yeah. And you said the key word, which is trust. And when a woman thinks she needs to make all the decisions and be in control and compete and be right all the time and create dialogues where she's almost just like setting it up so that she can prove how strong and right she is. I mean, these are very manipulative. Like, they go from subtle to extremely obvious. The range of trust. Manipulation. It's the lack of trust. Yeah.
Lack of trust, lack of communication, lack of respect for each other's roles.
Big one. Yeah. And same with me. Before being a Christian, I didn't trust that every decision that my husband was making for us was in my best interest. And it was subconscious. It wasn't a thought that I had that he was going to try to do something to hurt me or hurt us. It was just on this subconscious level that I'd been programmed to have to, like, be alert. And it's so exhausting. There's no playfulness. There's no, like, relaxation, like it's just a completely different way of being. And so a few times my husband said that becoming Christian has really helped our marriage. I say it saved our marriage. Yeah. There were times, and because we've been together almost 20 years, and there have been one major time 5 years ago. I won't go into too much detail, but I really did think that I knew better than he did, and that we would be better off separate, divorced, and thank God for bringing us back together. We were only separated for a short time, but he would even say that there was this lack of respect for him that was so annoying to him, because all he'd been doing the whole marriage was providing for me, protecting me, doing the best for me. And we just had these, like you said earlier about communication, we had some difficulties in our communication that could have been helped if we had gone and gotten support, which I talk about in my Instagram stories. It's the most major mistake I ever made in my life, was not getting proper support when all we needed was to learn how to communicate, respect one another, mostly me respecting and trusting him, and then the Luciferian part of that is that I was doing Luciferian type things like drinking ayahuasca and doing things like that gave me this sense of like, I know what I'm doing and I have this special knowledge, and the medicine told me I needed to be single, and just crazy stuff from my past that I've talked about a little bit on this channel, but it's like so cringy to even think about. But you're just reminding me of this past pre-Christianity where I thought I had all the answers. I was totally in my head. I was not in my heart at all. And I had no concept of the wife as being the helper, that God created us that way. I was rejecting God. And thank God for for allowing me to turn my life around and my marriage. And now I help other women, and hopefully they won't make the same mistakes that I made.
I love what you do. Like I said, your podcast has been helping me through my conversion. So
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad. It's my joy and my honor. So let's talk about, I did want to talk about, because I think you and I both follow similar accounts on Instagram, and some of them are very trad wife, like where submission is even taken to this extreme where it's like you don't even really open your mouth, like that kind of extreme submission, kind of like how we were talking about in the beginning, how there's this other definition of submission. I still follow these accounts. I don't have to agree with everything they say, but I find it really interesting, the types of things that they believe in, like spanking, and just like a woman should just let her man talk all the time. So I just wonder if so I'm just saying to the audience, again, I don't agree with everything. I just enjoy, because now that I'm not a liberal anymore, I'm much more open to seeing all aspects of ideas, and I don't have to agree with them to follow them, but it is interesting. And I just wonder if you have any, like a woman does not work, period, like doesn't do anything to bring income into the home. I definitely don't believe in that.
I don't agree with that whatsoever.
A woman doesn't wear makeup. Like I definitely don't agree with that. So
don't agree with that.
Yeah, obviously. Oh, now I'm the one with the notifications. Sorry about that. Okay. So I just wondered, do you follow any of those accounts? And
I do.
What do you think?
There's one account that comes to mind that I follow, and 90% of the time agree with what they have to say. There's other times where I look at my husband and I'm like, no, that's a little too far for me. And I'll like think back to scripture and be like, okay, like scripture actually kind of doesn't agree with that. And so, for example, in the instance of women should not work, number one, we live in a society now where most of the time we need 2 incomes in a household to be comfortable, just because of inflation and everything that's going on. Number 2, Proverbs 31, 10 through 31 is literally what I have pretty much based my entire business around. And so we have no official answer on who wrote this part, right? So Solomon wrote most of Proverbs, until we get to Proverbs 31. And we there's a couple ideas as to who wrote this, but basically the number one thing that most people have agreed upon that they think of who they think wrote Proverbs 31, 10 through 31 to be specific, was that it was a letter from a mom to most likely King Solomon about what an ideal wife for a king should be. So then you're talking about, you know, a noble woman, the ideal idea for an ideal wife, right? If this wife is fit for a king, then wouldn't she be the ideal wife for any household? So you describe who is a noble woman. She is more valuable than rubies. But it's not only that she cares for the children and she cares for, you know, in scripture, slaves and so forth, but it's also that she goes out and she buys a vineyard and she makes sure that all of the businesses that she does are profitable. Mm-hmm. So I firmly do not agree with the idea that women should not be in business. In fact, women who don't have children yet and aren't married, by all means, pursue a career. And there's also nothing wrong with women who have children with women who have children pursuing careers either. I am a stay-at-home mom and I am pursuing a career. I'm an entrepreneur. I own my own business, but I can work my own business from home in my own time, and I've made it work. Mm-hmm. So that way it's supporting my family, but my children and my role as a homemaker comes first. Mm-hmm. And I think we saw this big shift in COVID too, where we're learning multiple streams of income are like what we should be doing now. But most women don't know how to do this. A lot of women were forced into the homemaker role through COVID that they weren't expecting to have because their children came home from school or they lost their jobs or they had to go into the virtual world and they weren't expecting this homemaker role. And so they don't know what to do. They maybe don't know how to bring in an income. We hear about MLMs and all these different things, like how do you build up an influencer profile? How do you have a platform? How do you do collaborations? How do you do brand partnerships? How the heck do you become a creator and just sell your stuff through Etsy or whatever that looks like? They don't know where to start in doing that. And so I think where we need to start is educating women on how to do that. Yeah. Right now, society is educating women on how to go to college and go into a ton of debt and then maybe get a career from that, but then maybe go home. And if you go home, then you have student loans you have to pay off. Hi, I'm one of those people, still paying off student loans for a career that I no longer work in. Right. But we need to educate women on other ways to make income that allow them to be home. Yeah. And so that's one of the things that I'm trying to do is help women learn how to do that as well. Because it's something that I'm actively doing. Now I'm taking a little bit of a shift. I am a supporter of MLMs as long as they have a good business profile on them. Like I'm a big makeup fan. I represent a makeup company that I love that is an MLM company, but the primary soul of my business comes into coaching, and I'm starting to develop into collaborations and brand partnerships. And that's all part of affiliate marketing, which is totally different. Mm-hmm. But you have to be taught that industry because it's something we're not taught. Right. So I 100% believe women can have careers while still being stay-at-home moms, and that they should absolutely provide an income, especially if their household needs it. Like I said, you are the homemaker. You are in control of your home. And so if your house needs another income, there's ways to do that while still being home with your children.
And I think what we need to underscore here that you've already said, but I'm just going to say it again, it's that this type of work that you're talking about doesn't detract from, it doesn't take anything away from the chores, the cooking, the shopping, the laundry, making sure your husband has a nice, beautiful, clean, peaceful place to come home to at the end of his workday, making sure the kids have everything they need. And, you know, because we need to collaborate. I want to talk to you about this more because I'm trained in helping women create online businesses too, and social media marketing, creating a course. Like my dream, one of my passions would be to help women create homeschooling courses on a platform like Kajabi or something like that. There's such a huge learning curve, and I know the exact everything about it. Not even just Kajabi, but any of those platforms. I can help a woman take an idea and make it into a course that just sells on autopilot 24/7. or a live course or both.
Yeah.
And so we need to collaborate.
We do.
I think we could do this, like do something together to get the word out about this, because it's so much fun. And like you said, you do it while your child is napping or at night when your child is already in bed. And there's
Or I do
ways
it
to
while
do it.
she's awake.
Yeah.
Because like I
Mhm.
include her in some of it too.
Mhm.
She needs to see what that looks like. She needs
Yeah.
to see what it looks like to be a stay-at-home mom, but still bringing in an income while you're doing
Right.
that. And so, like I said, my TikTok has a fairly decent sized following, but it's because of my children. And so like I involve her in TikToks or
Yeah.
in reels when she
Tell the
helps.
audience about the TikTok video of her that went viral.
This was honestly, I think it was like the third TikTok I ever even put up. It was in 2020, whenever TikTok became big from COVID. She was like 3 months old, or sorry, yeah, she was about 3 months old, so it would have been right around the time COVID started. She sneezed. That's all it is. It's like a 10-second video. She sneezed, and it went viral on TikTok. It was insane.
That's
And
so
I still look
funny.
back, I'm like, this is hysterical. But yeah, she sneezed and it went viral, and I was not expecting it to. But that's kind of what brought that on. And then my other one that went viral recently was me having a mental breakdown as a mom. But she's like handing me an elephant, and I'm like, I'm gonna do my makeup because this is something I need to do for me. And I'm like, oh, I have to wrap this elephant for the millionth time. She wants me to keep swaddling this little elephant, and I'm 9 months pregnant, ready to explode. I'm just done. So, but I include her in the TikToks,
And you know what I love about that is that you're showing the reality of motherhood, and a lot of women can relate to that, and they probably really want to see that instead of just the Pinterest perfect life of motherhood.
exactly.
And it wasn't like you were like yelling at your child or hitting your child or something terrible like that. It was just that moment of like, I'm doing this for the 1000th time. Oh my gosh, I need a moment. That's different. I mean, I know there's that other video going around that's terrible where the mom wrote like, you a-hole or something with the food on the tray. Have you seen that? It's
No.
terrible. And so there's this whole population of moms that just thought that was so funny because it's a toddler. He or she can't read what she wrote, but it was out of frustration of motherhood, like, you
No.
don't even know how hard this is. And people thought it was funny.
That is
And
not
so,
okay.
no, so I saw it going around from people like in our community saying, this is terrible. This sends a terrible message about motherhood. We should not be posting things like this. And it's just really sad and tragic. Whereas yours isn't like that at all. So I'm not saying
No.
that they're similar. I'm saying yours is more realistic. Like, yes, it can be frustrating. I have a lot of friends with kids. I can't speak about it personally, but women need to connect with other women who are sharing that it's a challenge, and we need to be there for each other. I try to be there for my friends who have kids, and that's the kind of community we should be using social media for, not just like the total perfect. And another thing I love about you is like your trampoline video. Like you post moments that are real life. Like you have so much fun, you joke around a lot, and so it's not just like, oh, look at me with my makeup and my perfect life, you have that too, but you not that you're trying to be perfect, but you have the beauty, you have like the beauty of your life and your talents, and then you also show the reality. What happened on the trampoline? You like fell on you were
No,
jumping and then you fell on your back or something.
no. I, so, oh my goodness, that was Protestant Easter is whenever that happened. And so I was a month postpartum, I think, 4 weeks postpartum. And after having this baby, just full disclosure, my pelvic floor is like destroyed and I need to go to
Oh my
pelvic
gosh, I know what you're going to say. Okay, sorry.
And so I was jumping on the trampoline. And
That's right.
so listen, I am someone who, like, if people tell me I can't do something, I'm gonna go do it just to prove you wrong. And it happened to be that I was like, oh, I could still do flips on the trampoline because I grew up with a trampoline. And my husband was like, you can't do a front flip with the trampoline. And I was like, watch me. So I went and they wanted me to do the front flip. And this was the second time I was doing it. I'd already done one, but I did it at a wrong angle because they were recording it for TikTok. And so I was doing it a second time. And as I jumped, I peed. And so like the TikTok is in slow-mo, but you can hear me say, I start laughing as I'm jumping and I go to do the flip. I'm like, I peed. And it's in slow motion, so it says it's so funny, and I flip and I just can't stop laughing because it's just I had children.
Right.
That's what happened.
See, I didn't even remember the whole punchline part of it, but I still remembered just how funny and how you're showing the real side of yourself. And I
can't do jumping jacks. There's so many women. I've heard people say, like, whenever you sneeze, you pee. And I did not understand that because I didn't have that problem after my daughter. Now I understand it. So I can totally relate with moms who struggle with this.
So sorry, any guys watching, and if that was too much information for you. Oh, well, sorry. This is my channel and we're going to talk about whatever I want to talk about.
I'm an open book. Sorry. Talk about it all.
Oh my gosh. Oh, this has been so much fun. We have a couple minutes left. Is there anything you shared? Okay, you shared the app CATENA. I'm going to put that in the description. Any last words for new moms, women new to Orthodoxy, anything you want to end with?
If you're new to Orthodoxy, I just highly recommend going to education classes. Finding a church that has the education classes and learning about it, because the more you learn about the history of Orthodoxy and the theology and everything behind what they do, the more the liturgies will make sense. And if it's your husband who's making you convert, not making you, that's the wrong word. But if it's your husband who's leading you, correct? Yes. Trust him. Go with him because God has placed this on his heart for a reason. Just trust him. Don't go kicking and screaming like I did. So God will he put this for a reason. Just trust him. That this is where you embrace the submissive side and you're like, okay, I think you're crazy, but I'm gonna follow you anyways. So you go with it. And it's the same with God. We're submissive to God. And so we should follow his lead always.
Right. Because we're little Christs, and Christ did the will of God for us, and we are following that pattern of not doing our own, not just trusting our own will and doing what we want, which is what feminism taught us that we needed to do.
Yeah, it's not our will, it's God's will.
Yeah.
And oftentimes whenever our gut tells us we need to be selfish about something, it's probably not correct.
Good advice, Jillian.
Thank you for having me, Allison. This has been great.
Thank you so much. And I'm thinking I would love to do a panel discussion with several of the ladies that I've had on as guests. So I would like to invite you to do that if that's something you want to do, maybe in a month or two. I have another next week. I have a lady Orthodox Christian who you will really enjoy. I'm very excited to have her on the show. So I'm going to be inviting her as well. But God bless you and your family. And this has been a lot of fun. I'm really happy that we met.
Thank you. Me too. And I would love to be a part of that panel. And I can't wait to hear your next guest for that. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, to my audience, thank you so much for being here. This was I think I laughed more on today's episode than I've laughed on any of my episodes. So please follow Jillian. I will have the link for that in the description below, and keep your eyes open for her new projects and everything that she has coming up that we didn't get to today. Some really exciting stuff. If you follow her on Instagram, you'll be notified when she's ready to announce her new projects. So everybody, thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, and leaving comments. Please leave a nice comment for Jillian in the comment section under the video. And My Linktree link is also in the description. You can find my Telegram, Instagram, Twitter, and my email address and my Etsy shop. So until next time, God bless you. Bye.